Are you aware, according to code, that an arresting officer is supposed to take an arrested person directly to a magistrate before taking them to jail? And I guess that we don't want a yes or no answer on this. It's more...
Yeah, that is in the penal code, and the practicality of it, however, is that it doesn't happen that way because the people generally get fingerprinted and booked, but also that there's times when there just isn't a magistrate available. Court is not in session. Good many arrests happen after hours, outside of court hours. So that doesn't happen in practice, maybe theory only.
Okay, thank you. Ian Parkinson?
Yes, I am aware of it, and yes, that is accurate. The law says to go in front of a magistrate, and that is correct. After hours, the courts are in session, typically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Many of the arrests are after hours, so a magistrate isn't available, and that's why we have county jail. That's why inmates are taken to county jail.
Ian, you're going to get the next question. I need a minute or two here. This is a very long question. I'm going to try to summarize it, and to the person who wrote this out, I hope I do you justice, okay? Let's see, President Bush signed a law that in the event of a national emergency, the president can assume control of law enforcement. This went through the Department of Homeland Security. How would you seek to maintain local control when the federal government would seek to direct the sheriff's department?
Well, first of all, I'd say that the only person the sheriff reports to is the Attorney General, and that's what's most important. I do not report to the federal government. I am responsible to the people of the county of San Luis Obispo, and I have control over that as the head law enforcement officer in this county. The federal government coming in and taking action on things is one thing. I have one boss, and that boss or that person that I report to is the Attorney General and Attorney General only. So it really depends on the circumstance that we're discussing, but the bottom line is I'm responsible for the people. I'm elected to be responsible for the people, and I would maintain that control and responsibility to the people of San Luis Obispo.
Okay, thank you. Joe Cortez.
I wouldn't add anything different, but I would like to go back to this assertion that really titles don't mean a lot. Titles are used to describe accountabilities and responsibilities. They're earned, they're not just entitlements. They're earned by demonstrating skills through experience and education. If we didn't have titles, where would we go find doctors and lawyers if people didn't have titles? And titles are important to the outside world and even to the inside of an organization as they help describe accountability and functions. I think titles are very important. And I can tell you that I think I'm in a much better position to say so, being as I have them, as opposed to a person that doesn't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And a very specific question, starting with Joe Cortez. What's your opinion on an incident that took place in 2008 where deputies responded to a shots fired call and eventually opened a locked safe and confiscated several guns? The opening of the safe was done without a search warrant. Can you comment on this, please?
Yes, in fact, I already have. What she's referring to is an incident that appeared on kccn.tv. And what I talked about was that although we saw only a 23-minute clip of a much larger incident, it was pretty shocking with what we saw because it appeared that possibly somebody's property was taken without due cause, without benefit of a warrant. And to tell you just about how shocking that was, that particular video clip is being used by several police departments in our county as a training video of how not to respond and how not to act. So yes, I was amazed by that video. I thought the people involved, I expected better from them. And I was a little sad to see that there was not first line supervision. And I think that's one of the problems with the Sheriff's Department right now. We don't have enough sergeants, 3 stripes on the sleeve sergeants out there providing direct supervision. There was a supervisor on the scene, but he was actually a commander. I'm talking about first line sergeant supervision out there directing our deputies.
Thank you. Ian Parkinson, please.
Well, I'm glad Joe attempted to clarify that because I've actually read 2 different papers authored by him, and I really wasn't clear on what his position on that was. He actually said there was no supervision on scene until I pointed out there was a commander on scene that he didn't recognize. He changed his stance on that issue. I agree with supervision. We're united on that one. The truth is this incident was reported. There was a very small portion that was shown. My job is to protect rights, and the rule of thumb has always been, I've written many a search warrant in this county, and the rule of thumb is when in doubt, get a warrant. So that's the rule that I'd always apply, and if there was a mistake made, I'd take action. The trouble with this case is it was a 2008 case. There's a lot of facts we don't know. I don't think you want a sheriff that jumps to conclusions based on just a little bit of fact. The sheriff should be weighing the fact, making a decision, stand behind that decision, and taking action when the incident was taken or was inappropriate. But to jump to conclusions on a little bit of fact and a biased fact, I think is just flat improper.
My question is regarding abusive searches and seizures. As evidenced by the previous leadership, some deputies either knowingly or unknowingly followed orders that were illegal. How would you seek to train deputies to recognize constitutional and unconstitutional orders?
You know, every deputy and police officer, for that matter, that graduates from the California Police Academy has that basic information. They all know it. If we're having problems down the road with people doing illegal acts, it's something they picked up along the way. They know the right thing to do. They've been trained with the right thing to do. For some reason, they're doing otherwise. You know, we talked about morale earlier and what would you do to help morale in an organization. I think a great place to start is consistency in the application of our policies and procedures. And when disciplinary action is meted out, it doesn't make any difference if you happen to be a golfing buddy with the sheriff or doing anything else and forming relationships. Everybody should be treated the same within the organization. And that's what I want to do. And that's one of the ways that I'm going to establish leadership in the organization. Accountability starts with me, and the buck stops with me.
Thank you. Ian.
Well, first, directly to the question, I think it's pretty general and very difficult to say that that is occurring or is not occurring, but let's just say that it is occurring. There's one of two reasons. It's either intentional or not intentional. Is it something that's a training issue that needs to be dealt with on a training issue, or is it a disciplinary issue? Either way, it needs to be dealt with, and I think taking that approach to begin with is very important. I think to sit up here and pass judgment on the sheriff's office saying that that's generally happening, I just don't think it's fair to say. I think what is fair to say is that I will come in and I will make it very clear. If we have abuses, if we have rights being violated, my job is to protect rights, and I will protect those rights. And I will investigate when something is alleged, and I will admit it when our employees have made a mistake, and I will give them proper training when I see it's needed.
Okay, thank you. And Ian, starting with you again. How would you seek to protect citizens' privacy with regard to DNA databases?
Well, that's a pretty vague question. I would probably say this, that first of all, most inmates going into in either the prison system or jail system are DNA tested, and the purpose is to collect a DNA database. And the value of that is when we have a crime and we have DNA, we can actually identify a suspect. And I think it's very valuable these days. We've had a number of local cases where DNA has actually made the case, and I think that is vital. I don't know of any abuses or how that would become an abusive issue other than it's mandated for the collection, and I think it's very imperative that we utilize that technology, that benefit to apprehending people that are out committing crimes, particularly the violent crimes that they're oftentimes identified committing.
Okay, thank you. Joe, please.
So, you know, your DNA is your blueprint. It is the most personal of information. But like my opponent, I'm not aware of any abuses. For the person that wrote that question, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it after this forum is over and find out what the basis of it is, because I'm kind of concerned.
Okay,